First Amendment guarantees all Americans the right to free speech, but in cyberspace, that rule doesn't always apply.
Some of America's most popular websites are starting to censor views they consider offensive, and many of those views are from Christians. Paul Strand has the story.
The so-called new media communications like Twitter, Facebook, Apple, and Google are extremely popular. But Christian advocates like the National Religious Broadcasters say some of those companies could limit the American tradition of free speech.
We started our analysis of new media censorship when it was only a potential threat. It was about 2.5 years ago. And lo and behold, after about 4 or 5 months of evaluating the risk, we saw the risk come to life.
The NRB and the American Center for Law and Justice conducted a study of anti-Christian censorship on new media platforms, and they found that Apple twice removed applications that contained Christian content from its iTunes App Store because it considered the viewpoints expressed to be offensive. Also, the search engine giant Google refused to accept a pro-life advertisement from a Christian organization, which prompted a lawsuit in England. And the social networking site Facebook has partnered with gay rights advocates to prevent content they consider anti-homosexual. That suggests Christian content critical of same-sex marriage is at risk of censorship. Other Christians have also raised concern about the possibility of online censorship by popular websites. Twitter appears to be the only exception and is the only new media company that does not censor Christian ideas or content. Partial says that's because they have a clear written policy on free speech values. But the others reserve the discretion to ban any speech they find offensive. So Partial and other Christian leaders are calling on these new media companies to voluntarily recognize free speech values.
There's an interesting legal dilemma facing us, and that is this. The First Amendment of the Constitution was drafted to restrain Congress and government, not the actions of private companies like Google and Facebook and Apple. On the other hand, there's no question that the American people, I think, will demand, if they know this censorship is going on, that free speech prevails.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
This is going to be interesting as it unfolds, because what happens when a company essentially becomes ubiquitous, that they are the only one out there providing that particular service? That's what we're going to get into. It might turn into something the FCC has to deal with. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Gordon, more Americans call themselves pro-life than pro-choice. The latest Gallup poll finds that 50% say they're pro-life, while only 41% are pro-choice. That's down from 47% last July. And it's a record low. And American views on the morality of abortion have held steady. 51% consider abortion morally wrong. 38% say it's morally acceptable. A new colorful laundry detergent packet could be a danger to your children. Parents say the size and color of the new single-measure laundry detergent packets look like candy, and more children are eating them and getting sick. In the last 20 days, the American Association of Poison Control Centers say they've received nearly 180 calls in Texas alone. Most children experience heavy vomiting and diarrhea, but several have had to be placed on ventilators to help them breathe. The federal deficit is much higher than the official numbers indicate. USA Today conducted its own analysis and discovered Congress does not include the cost of retirement programs as part of its overall accounting. But state and local governments, along with businesses, have to do that. If the federal government figured it's spending the way everyone else does, last year's federal deficit would have been $5 trillion. The official figure was $1.3 trillion. The government reports it ran up deficits over $5.5 trillion from 2004 to 2011. But USA Today says the real deficits over that time period were actually more than $30 trillion. Gordon?
Well, these numbers are staggering, and I think we need a taxpayer revolution here in order to bring things back in line. Let me read you something that's really chilling, and this is from a former Senate budget staff member. I'm quoting him, "Retirement programs are not legal obligations." And he's talking about Social Security. He's talking about Medicare. He's talking about Medicaid. He's talking about those kinds of programs, and he's saying because they're not legal obligations, that the Congress can change them at any time, they don't have to report the deficits they're running on that. When you look at just Social Security alone, it's $22 trillion is the number that's needed in a bank earn an interest, and we don't have it in order to pay the current obligations of Social Security. We need some change, and we need it now.